the story won't go away, and it is Mr. Milos Kerkez from Bournemouth. Talk to us around this and where the links are coming from, whether you think they're particularly solid, because I know you do have a feeling about this one where you think there's actually quite a bit of heft to it because of the names who are providing the information around it.
Yeah, it's exactly that. It just keeps coming up and up again. We almost alluded to it in the last transfer show. Like, it felt like the McAllister of the other summer, you know, when the name just kept there. There was a feeling of inevitability around it. And even that from yesterday, that, you know, it was written from Mark Douglas saying that Liverpool are advancing their interest in Milos Kerkez, but Bournemouth want at least 40 million. It's almost at the stage, Trev, where the amounts mentioned, isn't it, repeatedly? The Times had the piece about 45 million. As you said, the names like Paul Joyce has mentioned him in his articles. David Ornstein has mentioned him in numerous articles. This is a name that just won't go away. And there was even a story about him the other day saying Manchester City are also interested. A couple of Italian clubs are interested as well. There's a couple of things on that when we went digging. Our info is, like we do on the transfer show, that he's not a target for Manchester City. We mentioned Destiny Udogie and other ones, and, you know, left backs in that regard. Also, as a few journalists, when you try and source Italian stuff, kind of scoffed at the idea that Italian clubs in the current financial climate would pay 40 million quid for a left back. Absolutely scoffed at that. So I think just to put that in perspective as well, Liverpool seem to be the main game in town at the moment, as far as we're aware, as far as where info goes. And we talk about the fee as well, because we've mentioned about the fee. I know I've sort of expressed my reservations when we're chatting like this to you. 45 million. Yes, I know it's not the days of Robbo for 8 million or Simicast for 12 million. I get that. Times change and the market changes. And people talk now, and there was a few journos when we reached out to them, made a few good points, like, look at the market for fullbacks. Calafiori, how much has he been injured for Arsenal this season? Left back, 35 million quid. Yeah, the market, the metrics have changed. And also, that journalist made a good point to me when I said it in the chat. It's great referencing Glenn Johnson for 17.5 million, but Rafa's not here anymore and Portsmouth don't owe us cash. So that's a little bit of a deal not to really measure things against as well at the same time. So the market value isn't maybe as sort of eye-watering as people expect. But the big thing to say, Trev, is still, we ran him on transfer market metrics, as a few other people have called out. The potential's there. No doubt about it at all. Injury record, great. But at 21, you do seem to be paying the maximum for that potential if you are going 40, 45. And potential is that it's not guaranteed or proven.
It's not, but you guys said, you just mentioned you ran the numbers on him with Bart. Yeah. I mean, what were the takeaways for you in terms of, you know, the eye test with me? What I like about him is he looks really dynamic. He looks strong.
Yeah.
You see fellas sort of hopping off him. He has that pace. He has that physical presence. And he looks to have a bit of a wand of a foot there in terms of he can pick a pass. That's pretty much all you're really looking for from the attacking side of the fullback. But I'm in the dark a little bit, having only seen him when, you know, it's Bournemouth have been on the TV and I've been watching, which is rare, or when he's played against us. I don't know the figures defensively. How did that look when you ran with Bart?
There's definite positives, you're right. Like, let's be clear on that. He's what we refer to as a road runner, goes up and down that left wing, dynamic at pace all day. That is a valuable attribute. You know, let's not dismiss that for 1 second. Dynamic, completely the right word as well there. It probably indicates as well why his best attribute when you see it there is his progressive carries. in the 87th percentile against fullbacks. Will carry that ball, will do it at a pace, absolutely. Some decent defensive numbers, it's fair to say as well, in terms of his interceptions and clearances, very good. It's also important to say when we ran him, Trev, because we ran him about 5 months ago, then we ran him the other week, the metrics are creeping up, which you want to see, which you like to see from a young 21-year-old with no injury history as well. Things to call out, though, not good in the air. Let's not pretend that for 1 second. Not good in the air whatsoever. Also, passing's interesting because if you think of like Robbo and the way Slot likes to play his left back, they're a bit deeper than they were under Klopp, weren't they? They're involved in that passing rotation. If you look at his passing metrics, a 75% passing completion. Yes, Bournemouth are a different team, different style, but it doesn't scream out at you. It's something that he'd have to work on in that regard, definitely, and improve. And also, it's weird. We called this out on the TMM show. He's got a highlight reel, hasn't he? You've seen a couple of crosses that are brilliant and people are getting them in, video compilations and all that. But when you actually stack the numbers up over the season, his expected assists are below Robbo and Tsimikas. And actually, it's not bad. People can look at 2 goals and 5 assists, but actually in terms of the numbers and the minutes, it could be upscaled. And yes, in a better team, you can argue that could get better. But that's probably the key word. There's a lot of good, but there's a lot of potential. And I think the question mark that a lot of people are putting against it is, you're paying for the good. I get that. But we also seem to be paying the top whack for potential when it's not yet proven or guaranteed. And people are going to jump on that because they're going to say, he's been brilliant this season. Yes, he has. He's been very, very good in terms of his speed, other bits as well. But there are question marks when he comes to a bigger side and you want to scale up. And if you are paying 40, 45 million, you are almost gambling that happens and he's the left back for 7, 8 years, aren't you?
These are all really good points. And, the eye-catching thing, I think, is the thing about Kerkez, right? Because if we trace him back, I think Maldini spots him, doesn't he? And, Maldini, best to do it in that position. Now, it doesn't work out for him at AC Milan, but obviously there was something there to be seen in the kid. He then goes and plays for a while with AZ Alkmaar.
Yeah.
Good link. And then, the more recent, I think he plays 33, 34 times for them. And then he's played 59 times for Bournemouth since 2023.
Yeah.
And I think the 2 goals he's got are this season. The goals would be a nice addition, let's be honest. Yeah. We would like to see some goals from our fullback. But you have to just say, maybe that's the thing with this guy, is that he is eye-catching. But when you actually sit down and really, really run the numbers, will it work? When you put that together with the sizable fee that's being quoted, that, it has to be very close to what it will be, because it's been repeated and repeated and repeated again. Here's a question for you. I know you wanted to touch on this. We both wanted to talk about this briefly. If the first big signing, because don't give me Fede Chiesa, but if the first big signing of the Dickie Hughes era is, I know, I have an idea, lads. Let's get Kerkez. You talked about optics. I don't know that Hughes would necessarily care, because I think it would be seen as quite a coup to get Kerkez because he's admired. So I don't know. I'm wondering about this. I spoke about it on the last show, and someone came at me on Twitter about how screw Bournemouth. If we want to take Semenyo and Huijsen and Kerkez, well, that's just life in the big leagues. That's what we said on the show. I said those exact words. It's always really interesting to me to get put in my place by people who are saying the things that I just said. Remarkable stuff. Do a listen, lads. But what do you think about that? About the idea of the way that we've been linked so heavily with three players there. Semenyo was a strong link for a while. Huijsen, we spent a lot of last show talking about. And now the one that's always been there is Kerkez as well. Like, does that make sense to you just as, well, a feature of who we've got in there at the moment in the shape of Richard Hughes? Or do you think these are real tangible links? And what do you think about the idea of our main man being seen to deal exclusively, or, you know, maybe do two deals with his ex-club? What does that do? We care about any of this?
You're right. You made the point, and I went digging on it a little bit to see. And actually, the info we're getting back, as you know, if only people could see our WhatsApp, but the messages I've been sending you back and forth, the screenshots are along the lines of, yeah, there is a bit of a thinking about the optics, as I say, and perceptions around this, because Richard Hughes leaves Bournemouth. Richard Hughes signs Bournemouth players, and there is an optic, a perception element to that. Ultimately, like you said, if the players are good and the players are right, absolutely, you know, you buy them anyway. You know, the data will tell you that. But it is interesting that, as you said, and you mentioned other names there, it's important to say, our info is that Liverpool's, we said in the transfer shows, nothing new. Dean Huijsen, a big target for us this summer. We've made the pitch. Virgil's called it. As we got through Anfield Index today as well, it seems like the football project is the big element, and Chelsea look like they're out the running for it now, is our info as well. So that panel, that club, the field, the options, whatever you want to describe it as, seems to be getting smaller and smaller. So Dean Huijsen is clearly a target, and Kerkez seems clearly a target as well. So you'd maybe have questions like, it'd be almost like if Arne Slot kept recommending, do you know who's got good players? Feyenoord. And you'd be a bit like, hold on. Like, you wouldn't just jump there. You'd want to make sure it's analysis. So there's that element. And we've also been linked with Semenyo, like you said as well. I mean, there's no way Liverpool are signing three players from the same club. Absolutely not a chance in hell. So it's important to mention, because our info from, as you mentioned it, and digging around is, yeah, other journalists and other parties have said Liverpool are just aware of the perceptions, the optics, if you want to call it that as well. So don't just dismiss that might come into the mix at the same time.
Yeah, look, man, it's all very, very interesting, you'd have to say. I want to just address one thing before we finish up here, because there was a social media post by Kerkez recently where he he posts a picture of himself hugging the football with the legend "I am incomparable" on it. And my initial reaction, as it always is when I see displays of supreme confidence stroke arrogance like that, is like, I'm Irish, so I just got get in the bin. Now, I will admit, I was the first person to say the best part about how the Premier League changed when it became the Premier League and not the First Division was the influx of foreign players who would say in post-match interviews, yeah, I played well there. Yeah. This was a whole new thing. And I'm quite happy to say if I've done something well. So it's not an issue around that. I was being spoken down the nose to by people who are saying, do you not like the idea of people showing confidence? What's wrong with someone showing a bit of confidence? That's not the point. You can show confidence. You can be a self-confident player. We've got a squad full of them. But did you ever see Virgil van Dijk, who is fucking incomparable, posting a picture? Now, so my only thing was, maybe it's a gag. If it's a gag, happy days. I'm not in on it. I don't care. Good lad. Off you go. If that's in earnest, I can't get behind it. And it's got nothing to do with having, and by the way, if you're that high on people being, able to express their self-confidence, what do you think is going to happen next year when Robbo's saying every second week when he's not in the team that he thinks he's a great player and he doesn't deserve where he is. That's the flip side of it. So, like, just acknowledge that. Look, there's nothing wrong with people being quietly and forcefully confident, like we saw in the Robbo interview earlier on. But that, to me, I don't know, man. Maybe I'm like, again, it's not to make a mountain out of a molehill. I honestly don't give a shit. If we sign the guy tomorrow, I'll get over myself. But we are aware of the no dickhead test. Let's be honest about this.
Yeah.
And it was just a little bit of a red flag waving. I just said I'd bring it up. What did you make of all that nonsense?
What's funny is he stated, "I'm incomparable." I was like, oh, he didn't watch the transfer market metric show we did there, didn't he? We compared him to everyone in that regard. And he didn't come up top in every single field. Let's put it that way. I mean, if he signs for us, it instantly goes down as youthful exuberance for me. And like, we'll roll with it. And, maybe Uncle Virgil will kick him into shape or just say, like, listen, lad, this, there's that, what I hope. And the only thing is, he keeps liking all the social media posts of Liverpool players renewing and all this. And he's posting, like, I am incomparable and other things like that on his social media. Do you remember when Roy Keane used to say, oh, like Pogba, he's a free spirit. He's just a bit different. Maybe that's an element for him as well. And we'll give him I'll give him a bit of rope on that. But if he does come to Liverpool, we can stop this nonsense straight away. Yeah.
Look, a lot of I've got a few Dutch mates, and they are, sort of, not to stereotype, but they are far more quick to be self-complimentary, and they don't have any ick about it like some of us over this side of the world do. And I'm just wondering, whether or not that will. Can you imagine a situation where Virgil's having to have that conversation with him? I don't know. I just don't know. Maybe Arne will be fine with it. Maybe it's the Dutch thing.
Imagine this. Imagine we've just beaten Brentford or something 2-0 and they're on Sky Sports and they're doing the lean, where they do it against the sponsors bit and they're talking and Virgil's doing his normal, we played well and all this, like knowing he's going to get Man of the Match award. So Milos, you started well at Liverpool. How do you think you did? I am incomparable. Can you imagine like what Virgil reaction Van Dijk's face will be like to that type of thing as well? People were joking. We're not saying he'd do that. It's just a point worthy of discussion. And it is an interesting one, definitely.
Loads of people are throwing name after name into the chat. And that's where we're going to finish, is with some of the rest of the names. Because, the story about Kerkez is the biggest, strongest linked, most repeated, has the most info around it with details about money and all the rest of it. And then you have the added angles of, as you said, the social media liking campaign. But there are obviously other people who are out there in the left back area. Some of the names have been thrown out there. But I wouldn't mind just thinking, what do you think about that? One of the names is Hato. Then we've got Ait Nouri, who was mentioned right back at the start of the show by someone, and again a couple of times. Yeah. Carreras, I know Dave Hendricks high on him. Hincapié, where did that link go? Because back at the late days of Klopp, we were very much linked with Hincapié. Oh, by the way, just one thing on the Klopp thing I wanted to mention, just to tie a little bow on the Kerkez thing. I know for a fact, because I have been told, that there were a couple of lads who didn't necessarily get their chance as much as other people wanted them to get their chance. And the reason was they weren't great chaps. This is what I've been told by someone who I trust. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about the dickhead test, just so you know. It's not just based on some sort of waffly crap. But let's get to these other names now. What do you think? Where did the Hincapié thing go? What about Ait Nouri, who was really, loads of us were high on him as an option. The lad from Ajax as well. What do you think? We got Tahir there in the chat saying, none of these left backs excite me. Sorry, Tahir. All we've got to go on, mate. But what do you think?
Thanks for finishing the show there, Tahir. Yeah, much appreciated. So, in terms of the names, they've been mentioned at some point, haven't they? Is it on the screen? Hato, absolutely. And I mean, he was at the game, wasn't he? That got us excited at one stage. The fact he can play both positions, like left back and left centre back. He's now a full Dutch international. So people keep mentioning that name. It's gone awfully quiet on that name. And from the latest digging around and trying to get anything on it at all, the info we're getting back, actually, Trev, is maybe not ready. Maybe not ready. The jump from Ajax and, the Eredivisie, which is a poor league, no offence to Dutch people, it just is in European football terms. It's no in comparison terms. So, yeah, talent, yes, but ready to come and be Liverpool's starting left back, not sounding great at all. As we mentioned, Aïnouri. Now, if you just look at his surface stats, Wolves have been poor. And he's got 4 goals and 6 assists, 10 goal contributions, so attacking sort of just headline stats look very good, you could argue, on that regard.
Plus, we have seen Aïnouri do a really good job on Mo Salah in the past, and that's not easy. So that's another very much in favour, because we do want our left back to be predominantly well capable of defending. So that is another little tick in his box, I would have thought.
Yeah, absolutely. And with his defensive metrics, when we reviewed him about 4 months ago or so with Bart from earlier in the season, a lot of his defensive metrics, and I mean this in a good way, have ticked right up over that period, because FB refs are always based on 365 days. So if he played well once or twice, it ain't going to change much, but a distinct uptick that way. But again, from digging around on Aïnouri, there's still maybe a few question marks against some defensive numbers, the aerial bit. And again, for these two, Hato, Aïnouri, we're just not getting anything to say. And I know people are saying, no, it's going to be Aïnouri. It might be, but we ain't getting that. And I'm not lying to you. I wish I could say, yeah, he's in the mix. There's all these options. We ain't getting that name. And then the other two that you mentioned, there's an air of manifestation with these two. We've definitely been linked with them both at some point. Absolutely. Carreras, I like him. I really do. Watched him since we were linked with him for a while. There's a lot to like about this ex-Manchester United kid who didn't want to go back. There's a lot to like about someone whose stats are really good in both boxes, really drives forward well and offers a threat and a solidity at both ends. I can tell why, as you said, Dave Hendrick and others are high on this player. No doubt at all. I also just love the fact that if you look at his FB ref profile, he looks exactly like Javier Bardem in No Country for Old Men. So that just adds weight to his potential to be a left back for us as well. So there's that. Just on that, to hear, I want to put that comment, it's valued at around 50 million. He's only got a year left to go, but Wolves have apparently got an option. So the 2-year element plays a part as well in terms of his transfer fee there. That's important to say. And then the best, the one that a lot want, he's on the screen, Hincapié. I mean, if you look at his profile as a fullback, Trev, a lot of green there, isn't there? A lot of high green, a lot of liking, as in can play centre-back, has a centre-back profile as well, which will be very valuable. Linked with us a lot. Also, in terms of what you look for, or Arne Slot seems to look for in a left-back, look at those passing percentiles. 93rd for attempted, 94th for... That is what you could see as a slot left-back. Pedigree, can play both positions. Absolutely, you could see... This is why we put on the screen manifested names. For me personally, I'm not saying Kerkez is bad because we're not 12. We don't go good, bad. That's not what we do in that regard. But in terms of what we can see, and people are saying, and I get this, they're like, you've got to look at Carreras in terms of the Portuguese league. I'm not disagreeing with that. Mike Johnson has put that on the screen now. But don't forget, Carreras has come through United's youth academy, has got that experience. There's all these elements come into the mix. It's never just straightforward, clean cut. It almost saddens me to say this. I want to be telling you, Trev, we've dug around and Hincapié definitely, is a serious option like Kerkez. Yeah, Carreras, really, they're in for him. I want to be telling you that. But then I'm just lying to you. I would love to be able to have more names on the mix, but it's important. One of the reasons we've done this show is just to say, I would love them to come to fruition. But right now, do not have them on the radar or close.
You're so right. And it's the correct word. Most of these names are people's projections and manifestations of their own wishes, what they would love to happen, as opposed to any direct links. I got the feeling that there was some sort of more direct link with Hincapié this time last season or whenever it was, but it doesn't seem to be a thing now. And we have to remember we have a whole different sort of setup in terms of the profile of player that is being requested or wanted, and the profile of player that is being scouted perhaps has changed slightly too. It's going to be very, very interesting to see, but it is quite interesting that, as you say, unlike with some of the other positions where all the names are sort of equally, who knows, who can tell?
Yeah.
The Kerkez one is the one that, just like you said it before, it feels like a McAllister. It feels like the one that's, been flagged up so much it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when. So I don't know. And I don't know if that's enough. And I don't know who stays to back him up or who stays to fight for the position with him. We know some people in the chats will think it's absolutely Robbo and he can still do the things. And other people have been absolutely clear that they don't think Robbo is going to ever retain or attain those levels that he got before. So it's a very, very interesting one. And we should probably start wrapping it up, because I think we've done justice to the topic. We've talked about why it's a priority. We've talked about the people who are very much in the mix person. And we've assessed said person, and we've gave the other names that are either manifestations or have been mentioned in the past. But can we just address the elephant in the room here? Because we are talking about left backs, and this is just to tee up our next show, which we'll do whenever it suits you, man. We have to talk about the other flank, don't we? Because whatever about Robbo maybe goes, or Tsimikas maybe goes, Trent is being chased by the biggest club in world football, much as it sickens me to say that. A terrible set of lads I have no time for whatsoever. But it looks like it's a done deal. And people will say, well, it's gone very quiet now. You don't know. But like, how does it look for Trent now? He's purposely been quiet as a mouse, said nothing, hasn't done anything to influence the fans' opinion one way or the other. It would be a roll back for the guy. I honestly believe that. Even no matter how good he is, if it doesn't happen, I'd be absolutely flabbergasted at this stage. So we have to admit then, don't we, that the right back situation, we're about to lose the best right back in the world, in my opinion. So how is that not the priority? That is the priority. In that case, do we feel, and this will absolutely send the lads in the chat wild, do we feel that Conor Bradley's the man? How can Conor Bradley be the man? He's a super footballer. He's a young talent. He has done so many good things, but he's been massively unavailable as well. How can you say we'll transition seamlessly? That's the same sort of, I don't know, shallow level of thinking that says, yeah, Robbo can just get right back to his best and play for another 2 seasons. But what about last season and the season before and the season where we could see the slow decline? Not that he's been awful, but that those great games have been less and less and less. Now we know that we are taking the best right back in the world. We are plucking him out of our team. What do we do there? Conor Bradley on his own can't be all of the solution. And it seems like Jarrell Quansah is not the favourite player of the manager either. What's your just thoughts on this, just to tee it up so that we can maybe go there next for our next show?
It's this conventional wisdom I mentioned earlier when we talked about, like, for left back, it's fine because Tsimikas will go or Robbo will stay the year and it'll all be fine. There's no problem there at all. The majority conventional wisdom seems to be, it's fine. We've got Conor Bradley. He replaces Trent, another one in the academy. That's what we do. We keep that machine rolling like it's all golden. Like you, under Jurgen Klopp, Conor Bradley missed huge parts of the last season there. Huge parts. This season, Conor Bradley's had multiple hamstring issues and missed huge parts of the season. There is absolutely zero objective evidence that Conor Bradley can do a season as Liverpool's right back in the Premier League. There's just not. His age. And when you start with Trent, who I agree, and people say Hincapié, and you can debate that separately. But for me, the best right back in the world. So anything's a drop. It's all about how big's the drop and how do you replace him in the aggregate, as they say, to use an American phrase. If Conor Bradley is your direct replacement, I don't know. It feels like that game show where the power bar goes down and you've got to guess like where zero is type of thing. I'm just like, how low is that forwards a little bit? And that's not being derogatory to Conor Bradley at all. I like him. I like a lot of what he does. But the drop-off from Trent to Conor Bradley is big. And everyone's just saying that this is like, oh, it's fine. And even the names we're being linked with, there's a lot of young right backs, isn't there, Trent, that will almost become Conor Bradley's deputy almost, it's assumed, and they will try and build up. Again, there is just a little bit for me. People are putting this down too easily. And conventional wisdom is it gets replaced, easy days, no problem at all. I'm not sure I see it that way.
I can see why people are high on him. I was lucky enough to see him live twice this season. Once last season, one this season. And he was actually fantastic both games. I mean, really, really good. Yeah. I saw him in that Chelsea game where he was outstanding and back when Darwin Núñez was a good footballer for us. And it was infectious, and you're in the crowd and thinking, look, we've got the next one. And yes, he has loads going forward. And I think he's very good going in defense as well. He loves a tackle. I think he was really, really good the last game positionally as well. A lot of people are quick to jump on that just because he's young. But you could see how the replacement in the aggregate could occur if we maybe go creative at left back, and that we could maybe sort of get a defensive midfielder in to free up one of our other midfielders to be just more attacking, so we don't have to have that rotational thing that we do with all of those guys breaking their necks, running up and down, Dom Szoboszlai, Mac covering everywhere, Grav covering everywhere. And then you have someone like Conor, but that's assuming that Conor can play there every week. And again, the evidence does not show that. He could just be unfortunate at this stage of his career. It could be that, but you cannot build on it could be. So it looks like we're going to have to recruit there as well. And there are some very interesting names being linked with the right back situation. I think it's fair to say we probably need to do a show on that soon.
Yeah, 100%. It's in a good way, though. Unlike summers before, and even when we're doing this left back special tonight, the context is everything. You bring that in terms of what we're looking at, but names are there, options are there. It does seem like you expect. I think we'd all be astonished beyond belief if there's not recruitment in left back and right back as well. So it's right to face into all of that.
And we look forward to doing it. We look forward to doing it with you guys live in the chats. We look forward to doing it for our listeners, for our viewers. All of you in the aggregate have added up to quite a few people in recent weeks, and it's very gratifying for us to do the show and seem to have at least hit something that you like. So we'll hope to keep doing that for you. Myself and Dave enjoy these chats immensely, so we'll be back with you for a right back show, unless something breaks in the meantime, which means that we have to come back and talk about a new signing, which would just be sick, wouldn't it? What a pain. But this is what we're here for. And remember, we've got 2 transfer windows coming up. So this is what the show is all about. So last word to Dave. I just want to say thanks, man. Another great job of collating as much data as possible for a topic that's absolutely to the fore and something we need to look at. Any last words on how you're feeling just about how this is shaping up?
Looking forward to the whole thing. And even in the immediate future, we'll see if people are looking forward to a good Friday and what that may bring as well. Yeah.
Absolutely, dude. Absolutely. We will join you when we feel the news is there next. Good luck.